Okay, so the farming framework is a tool that you can use to make your own farming game or several other kinds of games. It'd be good for a village or a town builder type game. You could use it to make a tycoon. You could use it to make something more like a role play type game. All of those would be very achievable with this particular framework. So let's go ahead and name our project and then hit create. If you don't know where to find the farming framework, you can just in the Core app go to create the new project. Then you can name it and hit create, and now you have your own copy of that farming framework. And the farming framework already has enough content in it to be a small standalone game. I mean, it would only take someone a few hours to get through all the content that's provided, but it has some rudimentary balance and enough assets so that you can use it as a base for your own game. The first thing we're going to do is just look around the map. We'll see that there's a town area. That's where you'll start. These four little things in the middle are shops. These glowing boxes here are defining, this one is the player's front yard, and these ones over here are the player's backyards. Notice there's 8 of each. That's because this is an 8-player game. So for each player in your game, in the framework, anywhere that you make a player lot like these, you're going to need 8 copies. If the game was a 16-player game, you would need 16. If it was a 1-player game, you'd only need 1. That's what you're going to be looking at when you're in your head. Now, the thing to understand about the farming framework is that it runs off of 2 main things. There's lots of code in the background, but the part that's exposed for creators to change is really made up of templates and tables. So you can find the templates for the farming game here under My Templates, Art Inclusion Farm. Here you'll find all the assets that get spawned into the world. This one has the places you go, that's like the areas. These are special effects that happen when you harvest things or pick things up. These are upgrades, so these are things that the player can improve on their farm, like getting a better house. These are gatherables. These are things like trees and stones that you could chop down or pick. These are crafted items like foods. These are crops and seeds. So these are the seeds needed to plant things or the fruits and stuff that get grown. Placeables are the objects that a player can put into the world. This is all the art for them. So your beehives and your sprinklers and your soil plots, those are all placeables. These are also producer products, but these are producers that aren't skinned as crops. They're skinned as other things. So your honey, compost, stuff like that. These are drops from gatherables. These are all your tools and equipment. Tools and equipment, just a side note, most of these things that I'm showing you, a lot of them it's mostly art that's inside of the template, but there are some settings on the equipment item inside of these equipment templates. Just a call out on that. Producers are the things that grow, like your plants. Apple tree, maple tree, potato, soybean, right? Those are all producer crops. And then producers other, these are the beehive that slowly gives off honey, stuff like that. And then this is the art for the stores. And this store is another category of one where if you go inside this template, if you pull one in, you'll see that it has a catalog zone here. And that's controlling some of the purchasing stuff. So there is some functionality in a few of the art templates, but everything that has visuals is here in this section. Now the other main set of things you're working with in the farming framework is tables. So if you go down to My Tables and you go to Farming Tables and you open any of these up, they'll have information on it. So buffs are in this one, sort of an effect that you can apply over an area. We have watered and fertilized as our buffs. But if I opened up, say, items, an item is anything that can go in your inventory or drop on the ground. That has to have an entry in the item table to work. A tree in the wild that you just chop, like that's a gatherable, that doesn't need to have an item definition because it can't hold a whole oak tree in your inventory. But you can hold all of these things in your inventory, right? A carrot seed, a potato, a beehive, anything like that has an entry on this table. What tells your game what tables it should be reading from is this global database. So if we go up here to global database, it's just in the hierarchy, and we'll just pick something at random here. Let's pick gatherables. If I click on this and then I look down here in these can be opened and closed. So if you ever can't see something that should be there, try opening all of the little blue thing arrows in your custom properties. But I have them closed just so that I can easily show you this. Down at the bottom, there's one called script-custom, and it has a table set in it with there's a little pencil there. So you can either find the table in your asset catalog, or you can just hit the pencil to open the table. And it'll open here and give you access to it. These tables are what define how everything looks in your game. They define how quickly stuff grows back. They define whether or not the thing exists and what it is and what script should talk to it. You don't need any scripting at all to use this framework. And you can really, really alter the behavior to make drastically different games depending on the settings you use. For example, a tree could take 24 hours to grow or 10 seconds to grow. Or instead of a tree, you could make a auto mine that just produces metal ore every 10 seconds. And then you could put a machine next to that could make it produce ore even faster. You will run into performance issues if you put out 300 things that are all growing in 1 second constantly. You're going to have to play around with your own game designs and make sort of sensible decisions to get the best performance. We've given you kind of a dangerous weapon here. You can make a lot of really great things with this. So I'm just going to quickly explain how one thing is set up. It's not a tutorial. I just want you to get the idea of how you might use a series of tables to define something. And then I'll do some other videos where I dive into the actual specifics of going and say, adding a gatherable, adding a producer, adding a new item for store, things like that. Also, if you want to figure those things out faster than I can make videos, you can check the help files here, or the documentation. The documentation is long form and goes into all the nitty gritty of the different systems and what properties are available to you. The help files are meant to solve smaller problems or give you just sort of a quick head start. So for example, give yourself items and currency for testing, or an explanation of what an object loader is, or how do you make a placement area so that a player can put down objects, things like that. So you can look up here, it's right near the top in help. The thing that I'm going to go over here is we're just going to talk about, I guess, a caret, because it's at the top of the table. A caret is a producer. A producer is just something where there's a series of states that change over time. So you have a placed state when it's a seed, and then it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger until the player harvests it, right? How it behaves is going to be controlled by this, by producer states and producers table, but how it looks is going to be controlled by templates. So let's go take a look at the templates first. So we have a placed, building 1, building 2, ready. Carrots, potatoes, and wheat can all die if you leave them out. This is what it looks like when it drops on the ground when you pick it, and this one is used to take a picture that's used for your inventory. So these are all just art. There's nothing special about them. They're just a template that has art in it. And I will do a whole video on making templates, just in case you don't know how to do that yet. So let's go and look at what makes the caret behave like a caret. So here we have a unique storage ID. Anytime that you see that column, make sure the numbers go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and make sure there's no duplicate numbers or your thing will not work. You'll have bugs. So you want a caret plant is the ID. The source item ID is essentially the seed of the thing. So the thing that starts the plant growing or the machine running. So that's the caret seed. Then the producer base type is where you're allowed to plant carrots. You can plant in soil or plant pots, and it goes on from here, right? But the other one that we're going to look at right now is producer states IDs. The table would have been too big if we put all the visual references in this table as well. This is a connection to another table. So the ID that's here, you have to use again in the producer states table. Let's open that up. And here it is. That's the ID. So see, this is a producer states ID, and this one wants a producer states ID. So that's the connection between these two things. And this is how you put the artwork in. So you see it says caret building right there. If we click on this little find thing, then you can see that this is the template that I've put into that slot just by dragging and dropping. So that's sort of what I wanted to show you. I just wanted to show you the connections between some of the art and some of the things that are shown here. in the next videos, I'll go into more detail, but I just don't want this to get too long. I just wanted you to have an understanding that you can control absolutely everything about this game, and it's really not too hard to do, but you're going to have to be changing either templates or information in tables. That's the basis of this entire game, is those two systems, okay? We'll see you in the next video.